Welcome back to another session of molecular biology classes. So first we'll finish today with, before we go on to the actual topic, we'll go on to understand what is genetic code. Okay, so genetic code, what we've studied from previous classes, it is DNA is a carrier of the genetic information and it is present in one of the two strands of the DNA molecule. And this information is transcribed to form the mRNA, which contains the genetic information in the form of codons, right? So now these codons are made up of three bases or three nucleotides, and we call this as the codon. So the four base pairs that we know here is the A, U, G and C, and they are made up of 61 codons and which can code for 20 amino acids. Okay, so these genetic codons can be, again they have certain characteristics. Okay, so the codons can be of two types, that is the initiator codon and then you have the termination codon, or which we call it as nonsense codon. So the initiation codons are AUG and GUC, and the termination codons are of three types. You have UAA, UAG, UGA, and AUG for methionine is a chain initiator codon, that is for the methionine amino acid. Now these genetic codons have certain characteristic features, right? So as we said in the previous slide, it is a triplet codon, that is it is made up of three nucleotide or three base pairs, and 64 codons are written, and these are always written from the 5' end to the 3' end direction of the mRNA. And this codon is ubiquitous. Okay, so each codon specifies not more than one amino acid. So the codon is degenerative, that is more than one codon can specify a single amino acid, and these codons are non-overlapping, that is they don't come in between each other and they don't have any commas or full stop or anything like that. Okay, so that is non-overlapping, and then they are non-punctuating. Okay, and then these codons are degenerated, that is each codon specifies no more than one single amino acid. Okay, and then this genetic codon has a phenomena which we call it as a Wobbles phenomena. Okay, so we said that the genetic codon are made up of three nucleotide bases, right? So the third position on the 3' end of the codon on the mRNA and the first position on the 5' end of the anticodon of the tRNA are bound less tightly, that is there is less space. So because of this than the other base pairs, and therefore it allows an unusual base pairing to occur. Okay, so that is called as a Wobbles phenomena. That is the third position in the 3' end of the codon on the mRNA, and the first position, that is the 5' end of the anticodon on the tRNA, are bound less tightly and the other bases, and therefore allows the unusual base pairing to occur. For example, you have GGU, GGC and GGA are codons for glycine. So all the three will pair with the anticodon of CCA of glycine tRNA. Okay, so this is known as a Wobbles phenomena. Okay, so in the next slide we can see this is the genetic code that you can see. The first letter, it's U, G, C, A and G. Okay, and the second letter can be of any of these compositions, and then the third letter can again be of the same nucleotide basis. Okay, so these, the second letter can change and leads to the formation of the other amino acid which are specific. Okay, so this is the genetic code. So here you can see in the next slide the Wobbles phenomena. As we can see, this is the mRNA, that is from the 5' end to the 3' end, and this is the charged tRNA. Okay, this is the anticodon arm containing AGU, the base pair, which is the complementary or anti-parallel binding to the mRNA codon, that is UCG. Okay, so this is the traditional base pair observed in the first and the second position of the codon. So the tRNA and the mRNA. And then you can see non-traditional base pairing is possible between the third position of the codon and the first position of the anticodon, as you can see in this slide. Okay, this is the tRNA base pairs and this is the mRNA base pairs. So this is the wobbles phenomena. So this we have understood about genetic code. So genetic code can come as a 3-mark question or a 5-mark question. So you have to write the definition. Then you should write about the initiation codon, the termination codon, and then the characteristic feature of the genetic codons. Okay, so this is about genetic code. Next, we'll go on to the other main topic for today, that is translation or protein synthesis. Okay, so what do you understand by protein synthesis or translation? That is, the genetic information present in the mRNA specifies the sequence of amino acids during the protein synthesis, and this process takes place in the cytoplasm of the endoplasmic reticulum. So in the eukaryotic, it is the mRNA has only one coding region, or we call it as monocistronic. Whereas in the prokaryotes, they have multiple coding region, and we call this as a polycistronic. Okay, so this is the difference between the main difference between eukaryotic translation and the prokaryotic translation. So next we'll go on to the requirements for translation. As we said, the first one is the tRNA, which is the main component for translation. And then for the initiation, you have 3 major steps in translation. That is the initiation, the elongation, and the termination. So in initiation, you require the mRNA that is activated. Then there is formation of the ternary complex, and then the ribosomal dissociation takes place, and then you have the formation of 43S pre-initiation complex, and then you have the formation of the 48S initiation complex and the 80S initiation complex. So the requirements for the whole translation, you require the main one as a tRNA, and then for the different steps of translation, that is initiation, elongation, and termination, you require for initiation the mRNA, which is activated, the ternary complex, the ribosomal dissociation takes place here, and then the 43S pre-initiation complex, 48S initiation complex, and the 80S initiation complex. So in elongation, you require the tRNA attachment at the A site, and then you require there is formation of the peptide bond, and then there is translocation process. In termination, you have the stop codon that is identified, and then you require the releasing factors. Okay, so these are all the requirements for the whole translation process. Next, we'll go on to the whole process of translation. You also require mRNA, rRNA, tRNA, and then you require the ribosomes, which play a catalytic role, and you also require certain factors which play an important role in all the steps of the translation. For example, the initiation factors you require for the initiation process, and then you require the elongation factors for the elongation process, and the releasing factors for the termination process. So all these are nothing but proteins which play an important role in each stages of or steps of the translation. So before the process of initiation starts, the amino acids have to be activated. So the first step before the translation the process, there is activation of amino acids. So what happens? Activation of amino acid, it doesn't take place in the ribosome, it takes place in the cytosol. So each of the 20 amino acids are covalently bound to the tRNA by amino acid tRNA synthase enzyme. The carboxyl group of the amino acid is esterified to the hydroxyl group of the ribose unit at the 3' end of the tRNA chain. So when an amino acid is attached to the tRNA, it recognizes the codon on the mRNA by the virtue of the anticodon triplet basis on the anticodon loop of the tRNA. So this tRNA carries an amino acid and it is referred to as a charged tRNA, and the amino acid is being activated. So this whole process takes place in the cytosol. Okay, so then we'll just have a look at how the amino acid gets activated. As you can see here, the amino acid in the presence of amino acyl tRNA synthase, this enzyme requires ATP and gets converted to form the enzyme AMP amino acid. Now this E amino acid gets charged or gets attached to the tRNA. The AMP is released, the enzyme is also released, and it combines with the CAA loop of the amino as tRNA to form the amino acid or the amino acyl tRNA or the charged tRNA. So this is the step that takes place in the cytosol, and this we call it as a charged tRNA because the amino acid is attached to the tRNA. So this is the activation of amino acid. So the next we'll go on to the initiation process of translation. So under this we say the first one is a mRNA activation. So the mRNA, here we always read it from the 5' end to the 3' end, and there are start codons, that is AUG, and there are stop codons. Okay, and there are also factors like 4F, which is nothing but made up of 4G, 4A and 4E along with ATP molecule. Now this 4F helps in the cap binding and 4E recognizes the cap of the mRNA. Okay, now 4A removes the secondary structure of mRNA and thus results in the formation of 4F binding to the 5' end of the mRNA. Okay, so this is what we call it as a mRNA activation. Next we'll go on to next, the 4B and the poly A binding protein attaches at the 3' mRNA. Now this 4B recognizes the start codon, that is the AUG, and the poly A binding protein along with the poly AA site at the 3' end of the mRNA helps in recruitment of the 40S ribosomal unit to the mRNA. Okay, now this 40S ribosomal unit binds now to the mRNA. There is a marker sequence which is upstream, and this is complementary to the 18S ribosomal unit, and this we call it as a Coxsackie-Consus sequence. Okay, in the prokaryote we have another marker sequence that we call it as a Shine-Dagleron sequence. So we have two sequences, Coxsackie-Consus sequence, which is known as a marker sequence in the eukaryote. In the prokaryote, there is another marker sequence which we call it as a Shine-Dagleron sequence. Okay, so this is the activation of the mRNA. Next, we'll go on to the ribosomal dissociation, that is the 40S ribosomal dissociates to form the 40S and 60S subunits. Now this 40S subunit is made up of 18S and 34 proteins, and 60S is made up of 5S, 5.8S, 28S and 50 proteins. And here we require the initiation factor 6 is required for the dissociation of these ribosomal units into 40S and 60S ribosomal units. Okay, next we'll go on to the initiation complex itself again. The 80S subunit of the ribosomal RNA dissociates to form the 60S and the 40S subunits with the help of the initiation factor 6. Now the 40S subunit, it is stabilized by the initiation factor 1 and 3. Okay, this subunit, the ternary complex binds with the GTP, and this initiation factor 2 also forms the 43S pre-initiation complex. Now the 43S pre-initiation complex attaches to the mRNA from the 5' end to the 3' end, the start codon AUG. This whole complex we call it as 48S initiation complex. Okay, now what is it? The two ribosomal units, the 80S ribosomal units dissociates, that is to 60, and the 40S subunits with the initiation factor 6. The 40S subunit is stabilized by initiation factor 1 and 3. Okay, now the subunit binds to the ternary complex with the GTP and initiation factor 2 to form the 43S pre-initiation complex. Now this 43S pre-initiation complex binds to the mRNA from to the start codon, that is the AUG, it is from the 5' into the 3' end, and forms the 48S initiation complex. Okay, now this 48S initiation complex gets attached to the 60S ribosomal unit to form the active 80S initiation complex. Now this 80S initiation complex, it is made up of mRNA, methionine tRNA, the start codon, that is AUG codon, and also the initiation factor 5. When this initiation factor 5 attaches, what happens after this? The other initiation factors dissociates from the 80S initiation complex. Now this ribosome has 3 specific sites on it. So we call these sites, one as a peptidyl site, the acceptor site, and then there is exit site, right? So we have 3 sites on the ribosome: the peptidyl site, the acceptor site, and the exit site. So the peptidyl site is where the amino acid gets attached, and there is formation of the attachment of the subsequent amino acid. The acceptor site is the new site which accepts the charged tRNA molecule, and the exit site is a site at which the deacylated tRNA attaches to it, and after it, the process when another amino acid get attached to the peptidyl site, the deacylated tRNA exits from this site. So the tRNA attaches to the peptidyl site, the incoming tRNA occupies the A site, and the deacylated tRNA will exit from the exit site, right? So this is the whole process of initiation. Okay, so next, in this flow chart, you can see that there is the methionine tRNA. This is the methionine tRNA. With the help of the GTP, it forms the methionine initiation factor 2 combines and the GTP formation of the ternary complex, and then this gets attached to the 40S ribosome to form the formation of the 43 pre-initiation complex. Now to this there is attachment of the other factors, that is the 4A, 4B, 4E and 4G. Along with it, the mRNA with the start codon, that is AUG, gets attached to the pre-initiation 43 pre-initiation complex to form the 43 initiation complex. So you can see the charged tRNA attached to the mRNA with the ribosomal unit, that is the 40S ribosomal unit, right? So here what happens here, you can see the next stage, formation of the 43 initiation complex, the 60S ribosomal unit also gets attached, right? And here you can see that there is P site and the A site here you can see, and the exit site you can see here. So this complex with the 60S ribosomal unit, 40S ribosomal unit forms the formation of the 80S initiation complex. Now further on from here, there is elongation of the translation. Now there is protein synthesis elongation step takes place, right? So we'll go on to the elongation step. So what happens in elongation? The main thing is attachment of the activated tRNA to the A site, and then there is peptide bond formation, and then there is translocation of the ribosomes, right? So here the initiation factor 1 and GTP is required for the attachment of the active tRNA, and this elongation factor 2 and GTP is also required for translocation of the tRNA. So the incoming tRNA and the initiation elongation factor 1 and GTP helps in the attachment of the activated tRNA to the A site, right? So we'll first go on to the binding of the amino acyl tRNA to the A site, right? So elongation factor you require here 1 forms a complex with GTP and enters the amino acyl tRNA. The GTP hydrolyzes to GDP and tRNA binds to the A site and the elongation factor 1 is released. So this is the binding of the amino acyl tRNA to the A site. So the next is the formation of the peptide bond. So the alpha amino group of the incoming amino acid in the A site forms a peptide bond with the carboxyl group of the peptidyl tRNA at the P site, and this requires an enzyme, peptidyl transferase enzyme. So the A site amino acid alpha amino group and the incoming amino acid in the A site forms a peptide bond with the carboxyl group of the peptidyl tRNA at the P site with the requirement of peptidyl transferase enzyme. Okay, so this is the peptide bond formation. Next, that is the translocation or the removal of the peptidyl moiety from the tRNA in the P site. So the tRNA dissociates from the P site. This requires the elongation factor 2 and GTP. So translocates the newly formed peptidyl tRNA at the A site to the empty P site. Okay, so this is the translocation or shifting of the tRNA from the A site to the P site, right? So if you can see in this, the elongation process. So the first one is the activation. So you can see the incoming amino acyl tRNA plus the elongation factor 1 enters into the 60S ribosomal unit, gets attached to the A site, right? So there's already a tRNA which is attached to an amino acid, that is the activated tRNA at the P site. So because of the presence of the peptidyl transferase, there is formation of the peptide bond, right? So this peptide bond is formed and the charged amino acid at the A site, okay, it gets shifted to the translocated to the P site, as you can see with the elongation factor 2. It moves to the translocation of the tRNA to the from the A site to the P site. Then what happens? There is dissociation or the there is movement deacylated amino acid. You can see the tRNA here. The deacylated tRNA you can see in the P site exits from the E site and it moves out of the ribosomal unit, that is the 60S ribosomal unit. And again here the ribosome waits for the next amino acyl tRNA to bind to the site. So this is the process of elongation, and several steps of elongation will lead to the formation of the polypeptide chain. Okay, so this is a elongation. So after the elongation, the next step is the termination. So as we said, in termination there is termination codons, right? So this is UAA, UAG, UGA. So after the amino acids are added to the ribosome, it reaches the termination codon on the mRNA. So there are certain releasing factors RF1, RF2 that binds to the larger subunit of the ribosome and brings about hydrolysis of the peptide bond, peptidyl transferase, and it releases the polypeptide. So following this, the ribosome releases the 60S, 40S, tRNA and the releasing factor, right? So what is it? That dissociates the 40S and the 60S ribosomal subunits. Then the many of the ribosomes may be attached to the mRNA at many intervals. So what happens? The ribosome moves along the mRNA in the 5' and to the 3' direction, and it forms a copy of the same protein. And many ribosomes on a single RNA, we call it as a polysomes. So the main thing here is identification of the stop codon, right? And then release of the free deacylated tRNA, and then the release of the releasing factor, and then dissociation of the 40S ribosome and the 60S ribosome, right? So as you can see in this diagram, when there is no corresponding amino acid tRNA, the stop codons are identified, okay, UAG, UAA or UGA, right? And there is the releasing factor, as you can see here, that binds to the stop codon. What happens? The free tRNA or the deacylated tRNA is released. Then the stop codon is identified, right? So the GTP gets converted to GTP. The free polypeptide is also released. Then the mRNA is also released with the release of the 60S ribosome and the 40S ribosome, and also the releasing factor is released, right? So this is the process of termination. So we finished with initiation, then we finished with elongation, and then we finished with the termination. So in initiation, first the mRNA activation takes place, right? And then the ribosomal dissociation takes place, right? And then you have the elongation step. You have here the first the formation of the activation of the tRNA, which is attached to the A site, and then you have the peptide bond formation, right? And then the translocation of the ribosome. That is the elongation. And then for the termination, you have the identification of the stop codon, right? That is the UAA, UGA and UAG, which is identified. And then you have the dissociation of the ribosomal unit, the 40S and the 60S ribosomal unit. And then there you require GTP for the separation of the polypeptide chain, right? The tRNA is also released, the deacylated tRNA, and also the releasing factor is also released. And then there is formation or copies of the same proteins, and then many ribosomes are attached to the RNA, and these we call it as the polysomes. And then the polypeptide chain is also released, leading to the formation of the proteins, right? So after the formation of the proteins, these proteins you need to have, so don't have any proofreading activity. So all the proteins that are synthesized undergo a process which we call it as post-translational modification of proteins. So many proteins after synthesis, they undergo post-translational modification before they become the functional protein or the active proteins, right? So what are the different post-translational modification? You have one is a removal of the formyl group from the formyl methionine, right? Then you have the formation of disulfide bonds between the cysteine residues, and also the hydroxylation of proline and lysine in collagen. That is also another post-translational modification of protein. And then you have the phosphorylation of serine threonine in casein. And then there is addition of carbohydrates in the glycoproteins, okay, and addition of heme in heme proteins, like for example in hemoglobin. And then gamma carboxylation of the clotting factors of the glutamate residues is also an example of post-translational modification of proteins, okay. So post-translation modification of proteins comes as a short note. So you'll have to know what it is, write the definition and write the examples of post-translational modification. So this is about the steps of translation and the post-translational modification. So next we'll go on to the inhibitors of translation. So you have a number of drugs that inhibits translation. You have drugs like tetracycline, which inhibits the elongation step by binding to the amino acyl tRNA to the A site. Then you have the puromycin, it inhibits the chain elongation. Then you have chloramphenicol, it inhibits the peptidyl transferase and interferes with elongation of the peptide chain. And then you have erythromycin, which inhibits the translocation by binding with the 60S subunit of the ribosomes. Okay, so these are the inhibitors of translation. Next, we'll go on to the differences between the eukaryotic and the prokaryotic protein synthesis. So as we know, the ribosomes in the eukaryotic, they are the larger subunits made up of 80S subunits and 2 subunits, that is the 60S and the 40S. Whereas in the prokaryotics, it is a smaller, which is made up of 70S ribosomal unit, which is made up of 50S and 30S subunits. The initiator for tRNA is methyl tRNA, which we have in the eukaryotic, whereas in the prokaryotic it is F-methyl tRNA or formyl methyl tRNA. The start signal, we know that there is initiation codons, that is AUG, which is very found at the 5' end of the mRNA, and it is preceded by a cap containing methylguanosine triphosphate. Whereas in the prokaryotic, the initiation AUG of the mRNA is preceded by purine-rich sequence. Okay. The initiation factors, we have here 9 are known and several consist of multiple subunits. Initiation factor denotes a eukaryotic initiating factor. Whereas in the prokaryotic, it contains 3 initiation factors, 1, 2 and 3. Then we also know that there are termination factors, and termination is carried out only by a single releasing factor. Whereas in the prokaryotic, there are 3 releasing factors, RF1, 2 and 3. So these are the differences between the eukaryotic and the prokaryotic protein synthesis or translation, right? So protein synthesis or translation itself comes as a long note. So you'll have to write what is the definition of the protein translation, protein synthesis or translation, and then write what are the requirements for translation, and then write first the activation of the amino acyl tRNA, and then write the steps of translation, that is initiation, elongation and termination. And then please write the inhibitors of translation, then the post-translational modification, right? And if time permits, if you can remember the differences between the eukaryotic and the prokaryotic protein synthesis, right? So this is about the translation. So next we'll just understand a small topic which we call it as chaperones and heat shock proteins. That is, to form the correct spatial arrangement of the proteins, there are attachments of nascent polypeptide chains, and there is to have to prevent the wrong foldings of the polypeptide chain. So the assemble of the tertiary and the quaternary structure of the proteins are not properly done. So there are several heat shock proteins that are produced during heat shock, that is any stress to the cells like radiation, heavy metals would increase the heat shock protein number. So this we can see mostly in cell division and also during certain recovery state after certain diseases, the heat shock proteins are increased. So this is about heat shock protein and chaperones. Chaperones will study a little bit more in detail in the other classes. So this finishes with genetic codon. Then we finished with translation, right? And then we finished with post-translational modification with along with the inhibitors, and then the differences between the eukaryotic and prokaryotic translation, right? And also we finished with chaperones and heat shock proteins. In the next class, we'll go on to something other topic of molecular biology. Thank you. Have a nice day.